3 municipal policemen in New Caledonia are facing a formal criminal inquiry after a disturbing video went viral, allegedly implicating them in violent acts against a Kanak man. The officers were not part of the French security forces that were sent to the territory to restore law and order, RNZ Pacific understands. The state of emergency was lifted on Tuesday following 2 weeks of deadly and destructive riots. A Kanak pro-independence activist predicts police brutality and riots will continue while Numea is heavily militarised. Jimmy Nauna, a member of the Pro-Independence Alliance FLNKS, says having a security force of more than 3,000 in Numea is fueling violence. Mr. Nauna says the territory needs a political, not a military solution. Margot Staunton asked him what he thought about reports of police brutality on social media.
We hear it and see it on social media. Our youth are reporting it. But at official level, either the Attorney General's office or even the French High Commission in Numea keeps denying those acts of violence from the police and the military. I would not be surprised if that happened. There's 3,000 troops on the ground here, police and gendarme and riot squads, and so things can just get out of hand in this whole violent situation. But what needs to be said is that New Caledonia is becoming heavily militarized. Macron has announced on Saturday that these troops will stay on the ground as long as needed. So after the Olympics and after, more troops will be sent in. So I don't think that's the solution to the issue in New Caledonia. If you send in more troops, there will just be more violence on both sides. So that can't be excluded.
Do you, as an organisation, have any idea about what the death toll might actually be?
No ideas. All I hear is the official numbers of 7.
What's your view of the police brutality?
Well, I think it's the fact that there's so many police forces on the ground that creates all these violence and violent clashes with the youth on the barricades. Like I'm saying, they keep sending in more troops, but that won't solve the issue. This is a political issue and it needs a political solution. So the more you have the military and the police forces on the ground, the more violence there will be on both sides.
So what does it feel like to be in a highly militarised city like that?
Well, we've lived through this in the 80s. 1987, it was a militarization of New Caledonia. We had the military all over the place, even going into houses and breaking down doors and, seizing, just like bush knives and things like that. So it's basically, a psychological, I would say, pressure on people happening again, but this time, all around Numea. The fact is that since there's no clear commitment from Macron and his government, to suspend this electoral reform bill, we could expect, these tensions to remain, and why not just make some more violent protest in the near future.
Suggestions were that Macron came out here to appease the left wing in France with elections coming up, and that really he didn't achieve very much at all. What's the organisation's view about the real motivation behind his visit?
It was quite a surprise for us. We did not expect him to travel himself to New Caledonia. Since we've been calling for this independent high-level mission, but he decided to travel to New Caledonia. So we were expecting him to make some strong commitment because he came to Numea himself. We read it more as a political maneuver. He's losing support in his own political groups in France. Coming up in June, he's also losing support for the European elections. So it's mainly for his own political gain that he decided to travel to New Caledonia. There's no strong commitment from him. So every time there's an election at national level, the New Caledonia issue is used for political gain through a national referendum. If it is voted against, which means it's been thrown out by a national referendum, the non-independence groups will also, protest against it, react to it, which means that the electoral roll remains restricting, as we're calling for. But I was just to be more clear on how this situation is still volatile.
Well, what did you think of Macron saying that it was the responsibility of everyone in New Caledonia to try and restore calm?
Well, Macron and his government also share responsibility in what's happening in New Caledonia. Let me remind you that the first responsibility of his government is when they pushed through the third referendum in 2021, despite that we asked for it to be deferred because we were in the middle of COVID. So since then, we've been contesting the result of that referendum. And then Macron himself appointed one of the anti-independence movement leaders here into his government. And then he appointed one of the anti-independence movement here, a leader or a rep, as the rapporteur on this electoral reform bill. So, which means clearly that the Macron government has taken side. It has not played its impartial role in the whole negotiation process.